Alright guys, welcome to our third Assassination Rogue Guide. This time we'll go over the bleed build. We'll be using Exhanguinate and we'll be using maybe Crimson Tempest if you have enough haste. This build revolves purely around haste, getting as much haste as humanly possible and just having your bleeds tick insanely fast. So what I'll be covering in this guide here will be your talents and essences that you'll need to play for this build, and when you wanted to switch, because it varies depending on how much haste you have. Your gear and stats and corruption choices, the opener and the rotation for the build, and generally how you play it. And last but not least, we are going to go over some of the alternatives to gear, talents, essences, if you don't have the right ones, because it's a common problem with BFA that a lot of people have. Like a character they want to play, but they can't be bothered to grind blood of the enemy. Frankly, I don't blame you. So we'll cover some of the basics basic alternatives, because this build here is very, very specific in what it requires to function optimally. And it might not do that with the talents that your top end players is using. Alright guys, here before we get too much into the guide here, I want to give a quick shout out to the live stream over at twitch.tv/killerchris. Go and drop a follow over there if you like the video and stuff. We'll have our monthly marathon coming up here this Friday. It's going to be an uncapped marathon. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So hopefully I'll see you there. We're going to do a lot of viewer raids and Mythic Plus stuff with you guys. And last but not least, don't forget to like the video if it was helpful for you. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and just a smidge of extra Blightborn Infusion proc chance on the poll. You know you need it. Alright guys, to the Feral Druid guide. No, Assassination Druid. To the Assassination guide. Alrighty guys, let's take a look at some essences and talents, what you'll be using for this particular build, the hasty build. So the ones I'm currently using, and this is the best ones at all. We're gonna go over the alternatives later, but as a major essence, optimally you want to run Blood of the Enemy, you want to run Formless Void, you want to run Essence of the Focusing Iris, and you want to have Breath of the Dying. So these are the essences, and the talents look something like this. You want to run Elaborate Planning for the bleed damage. Master Poisoner and Blindside is completely not viable. This here does not affect Envenom damage anymore. This affects all your damage. So therefore we take Elaborate Planning. Blindside, meh. Has never been worth it. The next row, we are gonna run Subterfuge. This build and the burst all revolves around Subterfuge, so this is a definite must. It gives us 80% increased garrote damage, and also it allows us to use garrote multiple times in the opener. So something we're gonna go more about later, pandemicing your bleeds to get the optimal exsanguinate time out of that. And speaking of pandemic our bleeds, we're going to run Deeper Stratagem, because energy regen is not going to be an issue here at all with all our haste. And Mark for Death, just don't. This one here is pretty free to use. I prefer Cheat Death, and every raider should. Very, very niche cases allows leeching and elusiveness to be better or useful in some cases. Next row, it's pretty optional. Personally, I prefer internal bleeding for clearing trash mobs and stuff like that. Iron Wire can also be okay in the open world, but yeah. And next one, we're gonna use Exhanguinate, as this build here is the Exhanguinate build. This is definitely a must-have. So the next one is Crimson Tempest, and that is the best one. We are going to go over the alternatives. One alternative is Poison Bomb, but we'll go over that later when and where you can use that. Alright guys, let's go over some gear here and your gear choices and what you need for this lovely build here to work. So, first of all, two really strong pieces and really nice to have, almost need to have, actually need to have, is the Mega God rings. So, you want the overclocking bitband, preferably at 460. I haven't, sorry, slacking. And you want to have a logic loop of recursion or the one that strikes from behind. Whatever you get first. They are really, both of them decent. Like, sometimes it's a bit hard to get behind the target, but we are rogues, right? I got the recursion one, so that's the one I use. And then trinkets, you want a Vita charged Titan Sharn and a golden plumage. These two here are amazing for this build. So you get all the haste that stacks up with all your haste corruption. And you get the unused for extra burst during your Exhanguinate and your Vendetta window. So absolutely perfect synergy here. These are the two you want to go for. For weapons, anything that has haste mastery as high item level as possible. Optimally, you want to get 2 of the mythic Raden weapons. Still haven't gotten them. You want a Gibbering Maw. Anything that has shrouded suffocation, Heart of Darkness, overwhelming power. Those are the 3 best pieces. Except for shoulders, you want the Goric Tools Mantle and run shrouded suffocation and Blightborn Infusion on this one. It also has overwhelming power, which is a amazingly strong haste proc. Overwhelming power is better than most like regular Azerite trades, not major ones, not the minor ones. And here I have a shrouded suffocation, nothing personal, which is fine. I would really like to have the chest from Carapace because it has shrouded suffocation and the Heart of Darkness trait, which gives me more stats of everything, while my corruption is above 25, which it will be in every single case. So that one is one to get for me, also because it has a naturally really high item load, so it's really good. But yeah, this will be this lineup for your items. Another viable one is the shoulders from the Suf. Yeah, it depends at your build and how you sim and with your other stats what is bet. It is a decent alternative. Yeah, and then we want haste mastery on as many pieces as possible. That haven't really been super well going for me. I've gotten a few. And then we want to just stack as much expedient corruption as possible. I recommend here for when we get later into the patch and into the raid. I know we're already pretty late in, but once we get our cloak up to max, we are gonna hit like around 125, I think it is, corruption resistance. So with 125 corruption resistance, let's try and calculate here. I'm at 48 right now, so that's 12 expedient, 12 expedient, 12 expedient, 12 expedient. So we can take 5 more corruption there. And we can take 20 more. So that's 25, that's 30. So that's 30 more corruption we can take before we cap out our expedient completely. So if we do that, we are still going to be much lower than we already are. We're going to hit around here. So we can actually take either a tentacle from your mythic Nasaf weapon, if you are lucky enough to get one. One of my guildies got it yesterday. I hate him now. I hate him. He was a nice person before, but he got the dagger before me, so now I hate him. Not really, but he's a nice guy. But he got my dagger. Dang it. With a socket even. Like. So yeah, what you want is you kind of want to take like either a tentacle proc or the haste proc corruption on one of your items. So that is going to conclude it for your gear. That should be everything you want to know. And of course here, as always guys, when in doubt with your stats, gears and enchants, sim it out. When in doubt, sim it out. Say it with me. When in doubt, sim it out. Great. Alright. Now let's move on to the next one. Alrighty guys, let's show you the opener and how you do this most optimal. I get this can be a little bit confusing if you're not used to playing dot classes. And as well, first I want to say that we are going to use Potion of Focused Resolve, and we're going to use Baked Potato and Greater Agility Flask and Vantage Runes. If you're using Vantage Runes, that is the consumables you want to use for this spec. Alrighty then, let's do the opener. So what we're going to do here is we're going to garrote, we're going to rupture, we're going to garrote, we're going to mutilate, then we're going to rupture, and we are going to go into our vendetta, blood of the enemy, and exsanguinate. And then we have our bleeds rolling and all the dots going. So what we want to do after we exsanguinate is we want to mute up to full combo points, or 5. We're going to envenom. We're going to mute up to 5 or 6 again. Then we're going to Crimson Tempest. Normally, you would think that you do the Crimson Tempest before the mutilate, but I like to do it the other way around due to the way the whole spec flows. Otherwise, you're going to run into a hefty overlap where the timing is so both your rupture and your Crimson Tempest drops off at the same time, which is bad, because then you're going to have downtime on both your dots. So that is the way I prefer to do it. To keep both the dots up and still not have it on. So once your empowered garrote falls off, you want to use your vanish and double garrote and use then you get 6 combo points, and then you want to use your finisher with whatever you want. And that is pretty much the opener here. So I'm now gonna just show you how it is and how it plays out. I'll have the add-on up here that shows the buttons I press. So let's do it. So we're gonna go into stealth. We are going to pre-put, and you can see my DPS over here and the stats. So garrote, rupture, garrote, mutilate, vendetta, rupture, and burst, envenom, burst, mutilate. There we go. That will get the Crimson Tempest up. We're going to drop the finisher here. We're going to let the garrote fall off. And now we're going to go here and just keep it rolling. We're going to use the Crimson Tempest here, because at that point, we don't want to overwrite the dots that we have exsanguinated or empowered by Vanish. So we want to let this one here fall completely off now. Normally, you would have pandemiced it and refreshed it. So we're going to wait until it drops off, and we're going to put a new one on. And that is pretty much how the burst goes. You can refresh your dots when they're less than 30% left. And remember, you want to make sure that you have max duration on your dots before you exsanguinate again. So that is the opener. And then pray you get your Vita and Lightborn Infusion procs on the opener, so you can get some sweet burst. Your opener's burst is really dependent on those 2 procs. If you get both of them on the opener, you're set. If not, it's gonna be less than optimal. But that's the RNG of BFA. Alright guys, let's take a look at the rotation and talk about a little bit more about how you play and what you can do and stuff. Alright guys, yeah, let's talk some rotation. So, you have your garrotes, you have your ruptures, you have your Crimson Tempest. What you want to do is you want to maintain as much uptime on those 3 bleeds as possible. So, prioritize garrote first. That is the most important one. It's the one that does the most damage with all those shrouded suffocation trait. Then you want to prioritize rupture, and then lastly Crimson Tempest. One thing to note here, you want to use a exsanguinate as often as possible, but make sure you pandemic your dots before going into it. You don't want to force a Crimson Tempest if it's about to drop off before, or pandemic Crimson Tempest before the exsanguinate. So make sure you get a new rupture up and a new garrote up, and then exsanguinate. And then you could get a couple of exsanguinates in before the next round of burst phase. You want to hold your exsanguinate and your blood of the enemy, so you line it up with Vanish and Vendetta and your unused trinket. Note here, every time your unused trinket It should be a 2-minute cooldown one, so just use it in a macro alongside Vendetta. That's what I do, and that's pretty simple and easy. And that is getting it going nicely. So once we come around to our second burst, we want to make sure we have around 3 combo points. We run a Rupture, Vanish, Rupture, Vendetta, Exhanguinate, Blood of the Enemy. So the way this works is kind of like the opener. We have the 3, so we make sure we get a full duration of the garrote, and we get the full duration of Rupture with the pandemic effect, and then we slay out with the extra burst. You want to make sure you pre-pot before this. You even want to pre-pot 5 seconds before this to optimize your focused resolve stacks, because your burst lasts 20 seconds, the potion lasts 25 seconds, and you can get those few extra stacks before you start your burst if you use your potion those 5 seconds before, to try and time it. I know on some fights it's not super optimal to time it like this, but that is what you want to aim for. Guys, this concludes how you basically play your Assassination Rogue here with the new Exhanguinate Bleed build, Crimson Tempest. Here, lastly, we are gonna go over some of the alternatives if you don't have these items or don't have these gears. Alright guys, here, so let's talk a little bit about alternatives. Like, maybe you don't have your plumage, maybe you don't have your Raden trinket, Vita trinket. So some of the alternatives to the plumage is the other unused trinkets. There's another one from PvP that gives worse. There's one that gives mastery. Those are really nice as well. Another one that is also really nice is the Razor Coral. If you don't have the unused trinkets, it's a bit more clunky to play with, and you don't get the benefit on the pole. But it is still a really nice trinket that sims extremely well. So definitely those for trinkets is definitely okay. Mechagon rings, if you don't have them, just get some high haste rings. There's a few from the dungeons that should be pretty easy to come by if you do 15 dungeons or 14 dungeons at 465. You can potentially grind them till you have a socket for them. For essences, there's not really much to replace Blood of the Enemy. I know a lot of people hate to farm it, but you could use condensed lifeforce. It is a nice and strong opportunity to do. You definitely want to make sure you have your Iris, focusing Iris. The haste buff is just amazing with this build. Formless Void, you want to go with Memory or Lucid Dreams if you're not super high on haste. If you're not feeling like you have enough haste to like keep your energy regen so high that you never have to like pool energy for anything, you should just be able to press your abilities all the time with this build. If you can't do that, Memory or Lucid Dream is definitely worth. If you don't have it, Formless Void is also nice. So yeah, you have some options. Another thing you could replace it with potentially could be Conflict and Strife. If you're a PvP player mainly, that is probably something you have access to. It is not going to be nowhere near as good as the two others with Conflict and Strife, but it is decent. And lastly but not least, we want to have the Breath of the Dying. It is just so strong. Even if you just have it at rank 2, it is super strong, and that's luckily easy enough to come by. So Breath of the Dying is a must. And there's really no excuse. Like, even if you have every other essence at rank 3, still use Breath of the Dying at rank 2. It's a nice thing to have. For the Azerite pieces, it's a must to have as free as much as possible. It's free. It's free shrouded suffocation traits. If you don't have the Garrote tools manual, as I said, anything that have shrouded suffocation and overwhelming power, something that gives you haste, is also really nice. If you can't get overwhelming power, the crit version of it, I can't remember of the name. It's like a little fiery thing, but that is also worth. If you can't get them, elemental whirl is also decent. But basically anything that will give you a crit or haste buff in the minor ones, and then just go for as many stats as you can. One nothing personal is also decent to run with. It's not optimal. That's what I personally use right now. For the corruptions, if you don't have enough haste, you actually, to make this work, like to be better than the other builds, you just need like 2 or 3 haste corruptions, I think, the bare minimum. And if you are that low on haste, you want to run with Poison Bomb instead of Crimson Tempest, so it checks out to be a-okay. And if you don't have the haste corruptions, other corruptions that I personally think is really viable, especially if you're not like speed killing bosses, infinite stars on pure single targets fights is really nice. So is the tentacle proc. Those are also really good. I would recommend going for those 2 instead of all of the other. Gushings are fine, but we all know how gushing wounds is after the nerf. They were really strong before, but it doesn't really check out as much as I'd like it to. They are still viable to have. If you have them, they are good to use. But I would actually choose the tentacle over the gushing wounds, because it's still proc based. It's not gonna be like solid damage. And if you're gonna go with that extra RNG element to the build, I would much rather just like double down on it and go with the tendies, because that's gonna give you some fun burst in the openers and other places. So guys, this concludes it for the video. Don't forget to hit the like button if you indeed learned something from this guide. I hope it was a fun watch. I hope I made it a little bit more interesting than just regular icy veins. Here, do this. So leave a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more great content, ring the bell for little extra Blightborn infusion procs, and the notifications, of course. So guys, also, yeah, live stream. You know where to find the link at this point. Guys, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Remember this Friday marathon stream. Don't miss out. It's great. Peace, guys.